Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Puramansa Parivraj Kacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bo. Jai. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you very much, Ekendra Prabhu, for the wonderful kirtan. And I want to wish Ekendra Prabhu a happy birthday. It's his birthday today. So I guess extra special nectar. As always, we will be having an interactive session this evening with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj speaking on the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So feel free to participate and you can raise your hand or use the chat box and we'll try to get as many questions in or comments in as possible in the time. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu, and welcome to everyone. Obeisances to all, and especially to Purushartha Prabhu. We're at Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.36. Tasmat Sarvatmana Rajan Hari Sarvatra Sarvada Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavya Bhagavan Ranam. O King, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kodamahyam Datati Shapatantikam Pandeham Sri Guru Sri Jatapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tasmat, therefore. Why therefore? Because nothing else is as good. The Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, no other means of spiritual realization or no other path of life is as auspicious as hearing, chanting, remembering concerning the personality of Godhead. Tasmat. In the previous verse, Shukadeva Goswami has already explained there's no auspicious means of salvation other than the sublime process of Bhakti Yoga. 9 methods are there for Bhakti Yoga, and Prabhupada says they're all bona fide, but out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. The Prabhupada one time had a meeting with the editors of Back to Godhead. This is early, and he recounted how he'd been on Parikrama of Vrindavan with his Guru Maharaj, and there was some announcement that this evening we'll be going to Sheshashai Mandir, and those who like can stay back. Guru Maharaj will speak. And Prabhupada thought that, why should I go see? Let me hear from Guru Maharaj. And Prabhupada said that his Guru Maharaj noted, this boy likes to hear. Prabhupada said, I would understand or not understand. He said, my Guru Maharaj used to speak from the highest elevated platform. He said, even when he would speak in Bengali, I could not understand. But I would go on hearing. That was my policy. And he said, and because I was enthusiastic about hearing, now I'm enthusiastic about chanting or preaching. So hearing is Prabhupada's emphasizing here is the most important function. Without hearing, what will we chant? What will we remember? What will we do? So the hearing, and hearing for that purpose, the authorized persons like Vyas have compiled the Vedic literature. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the super soul of everything, he should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. What's the use of hearing about others? But when we hearing about, and mostly that's what we do, we hear about temporary figures of this material world who occupy political posts, or who are great entertainers, or sports heroes, or business people, or neighbors, or whatever. But so there's a hearing. Everybody wants to hear and everybody wants to talk, but we're hearing and talking about so many things. And that will not help us. But this hearing, concentrated hearing, sarvatmana, Prabhupada translates it as everywhere. Another meaning can be with full attention. Let's see. I've seen that somewhere. I think Vishwanath says that. Yes. One should do it with the complete mind, not with some parts of the mind being attached to karma and gyan. So sarvatmana, wholeheartedly. Atma can mean the heart in the sense of your full consciousness. Our full consciousness should be invested in hearing. One should do it with complete mind. And similarly, the chanting, this word cha means all the other items. I think Prabhupada glosses it that way, or else I forget whether it's Vishwanath has glossed it. But when you see Shrotavya Kirtitavyas cha, so Smartavya, so that can just mean hearing and chanting and remembering, or that cha means hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet, all of the 9 items. They should all be done sarvatmana, wholeheartedly. Sarvatmana, Rajan, O king. Hari, sarvatra. We should kirtaniya sada Hari. We should chant about Krishna. We should hear about Krishna. Hari, because he takes away all material illusions, all material miseries. Harihi. Sarvatra, everywhere. Sarvada, always. This is quite the what would you say? It's not just business as usual. We just go along and sometimes we talk about Bhagavan, sometimes we talk about the election, sometimes we talk about this, sometimes we talk about that. The recommendation is with concentration. Elsewhere it'll be said later in the next chapter, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, with concentrated devotional service, focused. So we should, with great attention and determination, that requires the association of devotees also. Otherwise, our attention will be diverted to so many other things. We associate with materialists and they talk about their materialistic topics. We invite the television into our home and we hear so many topics. But if we associate with devotees, then Srinvatam Swakata Krishna, they'll be hearing and chanting about Krishna. What is that? Much chitta madgata prana, bodhiyanta parasparam, katayantas chamam nityam, tushanti cha ramanti cha. We'll enjoy enlightening one another with Krishna topics. So the goal is that we should always hear about Krishna, always talk about Krishna, always remember Krishna. Smartavyam satatam Vishnu, vismartavyam najatuche. Just 2 rules and regulations. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha, smartavya Bhagavan. Because Krishna is Bhagavan, one should hear about him. When the human being gives up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes the victim of hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made machines. machinery is not bad because through the machine one can take advantage of hearing about the Lord. But because machinery is used for ulterior purposes, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. Now, if that's not prescient, I don't know what is. If that doesn't reflect, what would you say, like foresight, or if that doesn't describe how things are now, where so many the machines have become prominent in our lives, so that from childhood we're busy in machine fighting wars or whatever it is, and having our attention diverted from Krishna. So the machine is not bad when it's used for glorifying Krishna, for broadcasting Krishna Katha, hearing Krishna Katha. We're having a great time online in so many different fora, hearing from so many different speakers, all Krishna Katha. Well, then the machine is our friend. But we need to be careful. The machine is like the mind. It can be our best friend or our worst enemy. And for most people, they don't even have a clue about Krishna Katha. So the television, the internet, the radio, all of these vehicles become sources of prajalpa, sources of agitating the mind, diverting the mind, and missing the point of human life. The mind, bahu shaka hinantascha, our attention becomes scattered in so many ways. So here, focusing the mind on Krishna by hearing, especially, then chanting, then remembering. Srimad Bhagavatam is made for this purpose. If human society gives itself to the process of hearing the Vedic literature, it will not become a victim to the impious sounds vibrated by impious men who degrade the standards of the total society. We won't go on and on about that. Hearing is solidified by the process of chanting. One who is perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced of the all-pervading personality of Godhead and thus becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. So Prabhupada's, this is a restatement of what I mentioned from that conversation, that the one who's enthusiastic about hearing becomes enthusiastic about chanting. There it is. The word cha includes all the remaining processes or methods of bhakti yoga, as mentioned above. When the Lord's name is heard, glorified, and remembered everywhere, this will bring about the desired peace and prosperity so eagerly awaited by the people of the world. The useless hearing and chanting brings about, as Prabhupada said, degradation. But this is a different story. Well, we have several questions here. One I'm going to deal with that's not in the chat box. It was placed by Jen, who's not here this evening, but because it's relevant to our previous verse, I'm going to talk about it. Am I correct to understand that buddhi is a form of spiritual intelligence, helping one evaluate different approaches to the divine? And does the Paramatma act through buddhi to guide a person? It seems like a two-way street. With our buddhi, we determine that devotional service and acknowledgement of Krishna is a good thing. And then our service and affection induces the Paramatma to provide opportunities to increase our devotion, including encounters with devotees, thus refining our buddhi. And the process goes back and forth until one has sufficient shraddha to be stable in one's devotion. Yes, but except in the beginning, that buddhi is a form of spiritual intelligence, helping one. Well, buddhi is intelligence. it's not necessarily spiritual. It's in its pure form, it is spiritual. So you can say originally, or in the way it should be, it's spiritual. Intelligence is the discriminating capability for anything, material, spiritual, what have you. But when our intelligence comes in touch with spirit, when it comes in touch with the pure devotee, with the message of Bhagavatam, when it comes in touch with devotional service, by that spiritual touch, the buddhi or intelligence can become spiritually charged, spiritually purified, spiritually directed. And then that process goes on and on, that the intelligence says, well, this is pretty good. And then, all right, you think it's pretty good, we'll give you more intelligence, Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. And in that way, it increases. So that's just a brief response to Jen's question. Now, more questions. Let me expand my chat box a little bit. Tina, is reading the same as hearing? Is it time, place, circumstance, in the sense that hearing was the way of passing down wisdom in prior yugas when memories were stronger, versus now in Kali Yuga, memory is poor, and even why Vyasadeva had to write down the Vedic texts for those in Kali Yuga? Or is hearing from sadhus and acharyas still more potent than reading? Well, reading and hearing and chanting, they're all potent. It's not that one is more potent than the other. The reading can be seen as hearing in the sense that we're receiving the message that was handed down, or it's remembering, because we're remembering the message that we've heard. So not time, place, and circumstance that back in the old days we used to hear and now we read. The hearing is still so important. Hearing captures the mind, and hearing is crucial. But reading solidifies hearing. Reading gives us the opportunity to engage our intelligence in studying deeply. So reading and hearing are complementary. Samarpana. Because the same items are repeated in both verses, one should understand that these are the chief items of bhakti. Now, this Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. However, other items such as serving the lotus feet are also indicated, though not explicitly stated. Right, that's cha. Cha means we're not going to list them all here. We've only got a 4-line verse, so we're not going to list all 9 methods, but cha indicates all the other methods. So they're not explicitly stated, but they're indicated by cha. So Shrotavya Kirtan. Notice also that this is a direct answer to Parikshit Maharaj's question to the sages and to Sukadeva Goswami. He asked, what is it that one should hear about? What is it that one should speak about? And what is it that one should remember? And here, Sukadeva Goswami directly answers that question. Venkatesh asks, can hearing be understood as gaining transcendental knowledge? Yes. We expose ourselves to transcendental knowledge, and just by that exposure, we gain it. It's not that, we gain transcendental knowledge. It's not that hearing is entirely identical with gaining knowledge, but it's the process for gaining knowledge. You go to school and you hear about mathematics or chemistry or whatever, and if you hear with attention and you apply your mind, then the knowledge becomes fixed. So the same principle applies. Kendra says, when Srila Prabhupada said, of hearing from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, even when he would speak in Bengali, I could not understand. It's hard for me to imagine what he meant, since I can't imagine Srila Prabhupada not understanding everything. Yeah, from our point of view, we think, of course, he always understood everything. But this was Prabhupada's, how he presented it. And you can say how his Leela or his life unfolded. I was a Gandhi, I argued in favor of Gandhi. We can't imagine Prabhupada, later arguing in favor of Gandhi, but I was practically Gandhi's follower, dressed in khadi. So, yes, hard to imagine that he couldn't understand everything, but that was his humble presentation, that even when he would speak in Bengali, I could not understand. Regarding having our attention diverted by machines, if only we were as careful about what we imbibe through our eyes and ears as we are about what we eat. Yeah, everybody, I don't eat this, I don't eat that, and I'm very careful about this, and carbohydrates and triglycerides and this and that. So picky, picky, picky. And yet we gorge or nibble or binge on all sorts of Gramya Katha. Nice point, Kendra Prabhu. Samarpan says, Prabhupada, quoting Prabhupada says in 116, to hear and explain them is more important than reading them. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. Hearing is called Shravana, and explaining is called Kirtan. The two processes of Shravan and Kirtan are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. Thank you for that, Samarpan Prabhu. Hearing is so important, and Prabhupada's emphasizing it even above reading. One time there was a drama, and Prabhupada said that seeing the drama was better than reading the book, Krishna book drama. That seeing the drama was better than reading the book. Hearing is so important. Yes. Don't ask me why that was typed there. The scientist, Panchatattva says, sometimes get short shrift when it comes to any entrance onto the path of bhakti. I'm wondering if, as in Yayata Mam Prapadyante, can a scientist who approaches Krishna, even though he may be trained to understand things empirically, be inspired by Krishna from within for devotional service? In other words, does Krishna, seeing his or her sincerity, make some opening for them to make advancement? Sure. It's not that a scientist has to be a materialist. In previous centuries even, it was the norm that scientists were devout, that they were theists. It's only a recent development that reductionism and materialism and mechanism have, commandeered or kidnapped science, have taken over as being the only acceptable mode of understanding. It's really not native to science or imperative. It's rather, like a demonic intrusion into the world of science. The demons get in there and say, no, it's all unscientific, blah, 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 blah. And they start making their metaphysical assumptions about life coming from matter, about the consciousness, the universe self-developing, and all sorts of ideas that are godless. And they present these metaphysical ideas as science, which they're not, because they're not empirically verifiable. And they campaign for this mundane or materialistic outlook. But not all scientists are like that, and nor do all scientists have to be like that. There are scientists, respectable scientists, apart from creationists who are often looked upon as flaky. There are serious, hardcore scientists who see science with a pious, shall we say, eye, or even a devoted eye, who object even to the materialistic. What's the word that I'm thinking of? Anyway, the materialistic takeover of science. So if one is actually intelligent and scientific, has a scientific mind and has pious credit, why is it that the scientists, the materialistic scientists, are so obstinate and so really unreasonable, even, and just rigorously excluding anything that has the slightest scent of being divine or spiritual? It's because of impious activities. Namam duskritana mudha prapadyante navaradama maya pritagana asura pavamashrita. This stubborn obstinacy is due to a lack of pious credit. But those who have some pious credit will do science differently. And even if they come in touch with the Krishna consciousness movement or the ideas of Krishna consciousness, they can be attracted and use their scientific training and knowledge and discrimination in Krishna's service. So we have scientists like Sadaputa and Swarup Damodar Maharaj and many others who are in that line of thought. We're not against scientists or science, but it's this materialistic overextension, this militant materialistic overextension of science, its intrusion into the world of metaphysics, especially, that we find so objectionable. Okay, shall we move on? Okay. Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam katamritam shravana puteshu sambritam punanti te vishya vidushitashayam prajanti tach charana saroruhantikam. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life, known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Pibanti. In the beginning, it's been recommended, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. Don't read Srimad Bhagavatam. Don't hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Drink Srimad Bhagavatam. What is that? Sukhamukad Amrita Dravya Samyutam.
Nigama
like,
Kalpataru.
Yeah. Yeah. But Sukhamukad Amrita Dravya Samyutam. It's become even more, it's become like a fruit. Probably most of you know they're drinking mangoes. There are mangoes that we eat, and then there are mangoes that are drinking mangoes. You take your mango and you roll it between your hands to pulp it up and you open it up from the top and you just drink it. Drinking mangoes. So Srimad Bhagavatam is like that. It's not just even for eating, but it's for drinking. Pibata Bhagavatam. That means to relish Srimad Bhagavatam, not just to read it and to study, but to take pleasure in Katamritam, Krishna Katamritam, the nectar of the messages of Krishna. This is not dry study. This is not, something limited and mundane, but it's those who are purified souls, especially, they'll drink Srimad Bhagavatam. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. The expert and thoughtful men who are rasikas. Rasika means one who knows what juice is. Rasa means nectar, juice. And rasa also means a particular taste in relationship with Krishna. There's so many different tastes in Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll hear about Krishna's relationship with his servants, with his friends, with his parents, with his gopis, with the queens. All of these relationships are in the Rasalaya, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can go on hearing and hearing in the association of devotees. What is that? Satam prasangat mama virya samdada. Bhavanti hrit karna rasayana kata. In the association of devotees, the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam is realized, it unfolds, it becomes especially relishable. Sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more a human society engages in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. Just right on target, isn't it? The materialists even are seeing this, that we're trying to exploit the resources of the earth and we're making ourselves more and more miserable. There's an expression, hoist by one's own petard. It means blown up by your own bomb. So that's what's happening. We're trying to exploit the material energy, but instead we're becoming victims of our own attempts at exploitation. And so the world becomes more and more an unhappy, miserable place, a place of illusion and distress. And we're trying to make life more comfortable, more happy, and instead it becomes more distressing, more full of anxiety, more difficult in so many ways. So there's sufficient, the human necessities are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race, as well as the living beings on every planet in the universe. The supply source is complete. Only little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. If you think about it, look at how like here in Towaco in the back, Sadashiv and his wife have made this garden, and it's amazing how much that little plot of land yields. Getting Corella, we're getting Loki, we're getting peppers, we're getting so many things and so many flowers. And really, what is it? You put these seeds in the ground and you get these plants with all of these gifts. And you just have to pour some water and you have to pull up some weeds and you have to do a little bit of work, but in proportion to what you get, it's almost miraculous. And this is Krishna's arrangement. I mean, he could have made the world out of concrete or something. Instead, you've got the earth which yields all of these treasures. And just a little bit of effort, a little, you can say almost cooperation with Krishna's arrangement, and you get the real necessities. You get the real necessities. You get food, you get cloth, you get materials for housing, everything. But you have to be willing to live simply, live cooperatively, and you find that you live more happily. But we create a society where we're disconnected from the land. No one knows how to grow anything. I shouldn't say no one, but hardly. You know, Towaco is full of what? Lawns. Who grows anything? How many gardens are there? We go to the supermarket to get food from, shipped in from Brazil or something. But from your own backyard, you can get so much. And then you reduce your expenses and you get organic, fresh, non-GMO, and so on and so on and so on. All the stuff that you pay top dollar for, it just pops out of the land with a little bit of work. So this is Krishna's arrangement. There's no need of machines and tools or huge steel plants for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. How relevant and up to date Srila Prabhupada's words are. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami. The highest perfectional thinking, namely sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they've lost the perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Krishna Svatamo Pakate Dharma Gyan Adibhi Saha Kalo Nashtadushamesha Puranarko Dinovita. Now that Krishna is no longer present, everything is there in the sunlight of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on this Katamritam mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. The sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, by sufficient hearing, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside. And people of all parts of the world will be able to live in a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. Punanti te vishaya vidushita ashaya. Vidushita ashaya. Asha means an aim or a hope, an aspiration. Asha pasha shatar badha. And vidushita means polluted. Vidushita ashaya. What is that vidushita ashaya? Vishaya. The idea that let me gratify my senses more and more. This is not the aim of life. This is a polluted hope, polluted aim, polluted aspiration. But punanti, these messages of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Katamrita. Punanti, they purify the heart and purify our aim in life. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relationship with his name, fame, quality, entourage, etc. are all pleasing. And because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narad, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by constant hearing of the messages of Bhagavad Gita and later Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Shukadeva Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Tat Charana Suroru Antikam. The lotus feet of the Lord are so called because his feet are always in Goloka Vrindavan, which is shaped like a great lotus, or his feet are as beautiful as a lotus. So by rendering him service, one can be transferred to that place where the Lord is present. One will reach the personality of Godhead. Antikam. There was a comment. Let me just see if I find that again. No, I don't see what I was thinking about. Oh, wait. No, I don't see what I'm thinking about. Okay. By the process of bhakti yoga, directly accepted as suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without one's attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception of the Lord. So we read in an earlier chapter about meditation on the Virat Rupa. We read about concentration on the super soul. But here, by this direct method of simply hearing the transcendental message, one comes to the right point. And by practicing bhakti yoga, if the performer is not purified from material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee. For such an impostor, there's no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. Later we'll read that his heart must be steel-framed because he's hearing, he's chanting, but there's no change of heart. If one sincerely and seriously follows this practice, then he will be freed from material contamination. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the second canto, second chapter, the Lord in the Heart. Samarpana has another question. What is the meaning of sufficiently hearing, which Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport twice? Highest perfectional thinking. And what can one infer from this sufficiently? Yeah, that's a good question. It's a something that's been addressed by the BBT's editors. In fact, they've turned their attention to this lately. The dictionary meaning of sufficient, of course, is that is enough to satisfy the purpose. So you add sufficient water to make a paste. Make sufficient money to pay your bills. So it's like just enough. That's sufficient. But there's another, the way Srila Prabhupada uses sufficient. I'm not sure if it's an older dictionary meaning. Maybe I'll check it. No, I don't think so. Well, let's see. Yeah, no. It's not an older meaning, it's a Prabhupada meaning. Prabhupada's meaning is not adequate or just enough. His meaning is abundant. That's the way Prabhupada uses sufficient. That one should sufficiently hear Srimad Bhagavatam. It doesn't mean you just meet your quota and then you're good. Sufficiently really means abundantly. That's how Prabhupada very often uses, I'd even say most often, uses sufficient and sufficiently. Abundantly, greatly, extensively, sufficiently, not just meeting some minimum standard, but abundantly hearing and chanting, overflowing even, that our life should be overflowing with Krishna Katha, not just that we chant enough to get by, enough to meet the minimum daily requirements, but sufficiently means abundantly. That's how Prabhupada most often uses it. Interesting question and a good question. Any other questions or comments here? We welcome other thoughts. I'm not the only person here. It's interesting here, while we're waiting to see if someone else wants to jump in. This is how we can complete the chapter with this beautiful conclusion, really, that we've gone through the Virata Rupa, we've seen the process of meeting the Super Soul, and how it all culminates in this wonderful conclusion that one should drink this nectar of Krishna Katha and purify one's whole life so that one can Vrajanti, so that we can go, we can travel. Tat charana suroru antikam. We can reach that final goal, the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, which is the ultimate perfection for the living being. Anything else here tonight?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question, not comment. I'm sorry.
Yes, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu.
Yes, Maharaj. Here, Sukadeva Goswami, he didn't beat around the bushes and went anywhere else. And this is just the beginning of addressing Maharaj Parikshit. And he just brings Bhakti Yoga right away, hearing and chanting. And that's very interesting.
Yeah, this is Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasa already did the beating around the bush thing in the Mahabharata and the Puranas, and he found that he wasn't satisfied. In the Mahabharata, he'd given so many ideas for gradual elevation, for taking up pious activities, for gradual philosophical development. All the indirect stuff he'd done already. And at the end of it, just to elevate people step by step by step by step. And at the end, I'm not happy. Something's wrong here. I'm not feeling satisfied. My heart is not happy. Then Nard showed up. Well, of course it's not happy. You haven't glorified Krishna, my dear Prabhu. So now Vyasadeva in his maturity goes right to the point. And that will purify everything. We saw that Prabhupada gave us Krishna consciousness. That took care of everything. All lesser, all other concerns are addressed within the direct glorification of Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Panchatattva asks, where could we find Prabhupada's dictionary? Prabhin asks, in the spiritual world, you'll find it. Panchatattva says, since sufficient means as much as needed, doesn't it meet the requirement of being the correct term? After all, elsewhere those requirements are delineated. Yeah, I mean, you can say sufficiently would work here. I'm just speaking from my observation and shared with other editors that, and if you look through Srila Prabhupada's books, you'll see that he often uses sufficiently in a different sense than just meeting the minimum requirements. Nandan and Yashoda were sufficiently crying. That obviously doesn't mean just enough so that the public opinion would be satisfied or something like that. It means profusely, abundantly. The earth will provide sufficient, sufficient, but really Prabhupada means profuse, abundant. And of course you could take it literally, sufficient, and sufficient can work, but our observation, looking at the larger picture of Prabhupada's writings, is that so often he really means profusely, abundantly, greatly. Okay, that's answered. Athena, of course, has another question, but we're at 4 minutes from 9 o'clock, and I think we can hand things back over to Madan Gopal Prabhu, and in our next meeting, we can begin pure devotional service, the change in heart. Thank you for that very nice comment, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj. And thank you all devotees for staying with us as we've just now concluded the entire chapter. And we look forward to Wednesday as we start the next chapter, chapter 3. I'm just going to share my screen for the announcements of upcoming speakers. So, as always, let me see if it's going to work here. So on Thursdays, we have the Vanaprastha Adventure. For those of you who are not aware, this is a special once-a-week class discussion session that takes place on a separate Zoom channel on Maharaj's website on Thursdays, 7 to 8 p.m. And you can find his website, jswami.info, under About, and you will see the link there. You can see the other links for all our classes. Upcoming speakers. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have second Canto Srimad Bhagavatam with Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. On Tuesday, tomorrow, we have Amarendra Prabhu. On Thursday, we have a special session with Brajalila Mataji and Ekavira Prabhu. And then on Sunday, we have Gauranga Prabhu. So please join us on all these days. Tomorrow, the topic is the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam with Amarendra Prabhu. And then starting on September 13th, we have a special practical seminar, Personal Finance Planning for Devotees by Vamshidhari Gopal Prabhu. So if you'd like to register, you can go to tinyurl.com, Register Finance Seminar ISKCON. You can find the details also on our website, ISKCON of New Jersey. It's a free seminar, doesn't cost anything, but it's 2-hour sessions, 4 Sundays in a row, starting September 13th, about 2 weeks from now. So if you're interested, please register and you'll get the link for this, how to prepare financially and so on. Even if you're, doesn't matter so much what stage of life you're in, but it's very practical. If you're just starting out in Grihast Ashram, or even if you're about to retire or already retired, give some tips on how to save money and so on. So please do join that seminar if you like. And with that, we close out the session. If you would like to unmute yourself and say a quick Haribol. We also have Anil Mani Prabhu. And Mani Prabhu, you can lead us in thanking Maharaj. So thank you very much, Maharaj, and thank you very much, dear devotees, for joining. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Dandavad.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much.
You need to turn your camera on.
Oh yes, and today is Ekendra Prabhu's birthday. We want to wish Ekendra Prabhu our kirtan today. For being
Hare Bol Ekendra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Maharaj ki jai.
Maharaj.
Hare.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Prabhupada ki jai. Maharaj ki jai.